Okay, let's see what's in the Eachine Tyro69 box. Alright, so first we have, let's see, okay, this is the Caddx Beetle V2, little tiny camera, 1200 TV line I think, and a little VTX. And here's the flight controller. What is this? This is a F4. I think this is a MPU 6000 gyro on it. It's XT30, and it looks like the plug for the flight controller and ESC, and then maybe a receiver plug. And here's the ESC. It's a 20 amp 4-in-1 right here. It's got a cap already on. I think all this stuff is 20 by 20. It's like a very cheap Velcro strap. Doesn't look like it's rubberized, so that might not be so good. And over the motors, it's the 1104 8600 kV orange motors. Seems like a bit much for these little props, but we'll see. Mounting hardware. Oh, here's the little naked camera mount. No real protection for the camera here, but I'm going to use everything that just comes in the kit, build it as is as much as possible. A bag with 2 screws and 2 nuts. Not sure what that's for. Oh, here's the frame. So 2mm. Pretty simple stuff here. And here's a set of what they call paddles. These are 65mm LDARC 1.5mm props. These are, never tried these before. They look like the Gem Fan ones, but not sure if they're any different. We'll see how those go. And then so that's everything inside. And then I got the manual from the internet. So let me take everything out of the bag and then see how it actually looks underneath all the plastic, and then let's start building it. So here's everything taken out of the bag. So let's start with the frame. And nothing fancy here, but it definitely feels strong enough. So that's nice. And here are the 4 motors here. Now I got a bad feeling about these wires. They feel pretty stiff, so I think these aren't I think those are just the motor windings coming out, so hopefully that won't be too tough to solder. We'll see. But they feel okay. And there's the camera mount, and here's the ESC and flight controller. Now I think the only soldering that we're going to have to do will be for the motor connections and then for the XT30 battery lead, because the flight controller and the ESC have a plug, and then you might need to solder, well, depending on how you have your receiver set up. I think the receiver plugs in, and then also the camera will just plug directly into the board, I think. So I think, yeah, the only soldering will be for the motor connections and the battery lead. So that shouldn't be too bad. And let's see. So yeah, I think that's it. I think I'm ready to start building. I'm going to put in an RXSR receiver, which is the only thing I had lying around. I'm not sure where it's supposed to go on the frame. I guess we'll have to figure that out as well. But anyway, let's get started. I'll take some pictures and video along the way if anything is... What is that? Yeah, I'll take some pictures and video along the way if anything stands out that I think I should point out, but it should be pretty straightforward. We'll see. Anyway, let's get cracking. So the first thing I noticed was that these little rubber or silicone spacers that are used on the flight stack are all different lengths, so I just cut down a couple of the longest ones just so they're a little bit more even. I don't think they have to be perfect, but just within reason. And now I'm just tinning up the battery leads. Nothing too difficult here. So I get plenty of solder on there to make your job a lot easier when you then go to attach it to the ESC, which I'm doing here. That's just the solder that came already on the ESC. I didn't pre-tin those, that came like that. So it all flowed pretty well. No issues here. I'm just using a simple little 40-watt Hotco soldering iron. And then I added my own heat shrink here. The kit doesn't come with this, just to keep everything a little bit more secure down there. And here I'm just tinning up the motor pads. Pretty easy to do as well. Just go around, get them all, just make sure you got a little shiny blob on each one. And then when you go to attach the motors, it's very fast. They just hold it there for a second, and then the motor should attach. So the motor wires are kind of long and they're kind of stiff and hard to work with, so I decided it would be easiest, instead of cutting them and trying to re-tin them, I would just wrap them around the standoffs in there long enough that you can solder them in this way. Go around the standoffs, and that way they're not sticking out. So I think it worked out well. So there it is, all done. Pretty neat. Pretty happy with that. And I hear this is an important step. If you're going to use, I think most people are going to use S-Bus, you need to bridge these 2 pads I'm not sure why, but they say to do this in the manual and the pads are there, so I think you have to do this. Bridge the pads if you're going to use S-Bus. And now here I'm just plugging in everything in, the camera and everything connected, because I wanted to see which way was up on the camera, because I'll show you why in a second here. So the way the camera is, the wires are coming out of the bottom right side of the camera, if you're looking at the back of it. So in the canopy there's a little ridge there on the right side and on the left side. It's designed to hold the camera in, and the ridge I think can rub on the wires that are coming out of the camera, and I don't really like that. I feel like over time that's going to cause an issue, so I just trimmed away a little bit of the canopy on the inside where that ridge is, and then the camera fits in there fine. And there it is in the mount. Now here you can see there is not much slack at all. From the VTX to the flight controller, the way this wire is routing, I don't think there's any other way to route this, but it's pretty tight in there, so just be careful when you're doing this part. And there it is, just kind of a rough, dry assembly. Receiver sticking out there. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with that. But yeah, that's more or less the kit right there. Pretty simple. And so now what I'm gonna do is I'm holding down the little boot button on the flight controller, on the flight controller. Holding down the boot button on the flight controller, and I'm gonna flash the latest version of Betaflight, because out of the box this thing comes with Betaflight 355. Yeah, like Dark Ages stuff. So if I'm gonna flash it, well, I might as well flash it with the latest version, which happens to be 406, and you want to choose the Maytech F411 is the target. So a couple of things here are going to be specific to my setup, but I think here you want to do this on UART2, make sure Smart Audio is selected. And then for me, I don't use the angle mode, so I never use the accelerometer or barometer, so I turn those off generally. And then you might need to switch this back to D-Shot 600. And I switched to 8K. And let's see, I think everything else is more or less as is, Tyro69. So then I think, so then the other thing that's important is to make sure the motor rotation direction is correct. So obviously with the propellers off, plug in your flight battery and plug it back into Betaflight, and then check each motor one by one, make sure they're turning in the right direction. And if they're not, you'll have to open up BL Heli Suite and reverse the direction of the motors in there, which looks something like this. You just, in the same way, have the props off, battery connected, read the setup, and then whichever motors you need to reverse, just reverse those. These are the ones I needed to change in my case, but yours is probably going to be a little bit different. So write the setup and then disconnect, and now the only thing you'd have to do is still set up your modes in Betaflight, however you like to set those up. And then you should be pretty much ready. Well, here it is. It's all together. Pretty tidy little package. I mean, everything is exposed, but yeah, that's the nature of it. It certainly keeps it simple and inexpensive. And spoiler alert, I've flown this, and it still exists. And I'll talk about the flying experience later. But first, I just wanted to go over how the build went. I never really found a good place for the receiver, and I'm using probably a bigger receiver than some people will use with an RXSR. With the big connector on it, so I think most people can probably just get any other receiver like an XM Plus or something, and I'm sure it can probably go underneath the camera with no problems. And I might do something about that at some point, but I just wanted to get this thing flying. So for now, got the receiver just strapped to the capacitor and the battery lead. It's clear of the props, so it's okay for now. Let's see what else. So the main thing that I added, well, I added these zip ties. They didn't come in the kit, so I added the zip ties for the cable management and somewhere to put the antenna. But the most important thing I added, I think, that doesn't come with the kit is a little battery pad. I think you're going to have to add something like that. Otherwise, I don't know how the battery is supposed to stay. The crappy little Velcro strap that they include works fine as long as you have a decent sticky battery pad. So definitely will need to add that. But other than that, the kit's pretty complete. The props seem okay. Oh yeah, so let's see. This comes in at, I think it's pretty much just 50 grams. Which is a decent weight for something with the 1104 motors. It's got plenty of power. So it's showing 51 grams, so not too bad. I'm going to show the flight here in a couple minutes. First, I want to talk about the batteries I used today. I tried a 2S450 and a 2S300, and I think this thing has more than enough power on 2S. In the manual and online, I think they say the recommended battery is a 350 to 450, but I think that's overkill. I don't think you can actually tune this on Betaflight 4 on a 3S battery. I'd be surprised if somebody could do it. I'd like to see that and like to see what numbers they're using for their settings. because I don't think you can do it. But on 2S, it had more than enough power. It was plenty fast. And on the 450 battery, I was getting about 5 minutes, over 5 minutes of flight time with the 450. And then on the 300, getting about 3.5 minutes. So probably something in between there would be the ideal size. But yeah, I don't think I would recommend if you get this flight on 2S, you'll be more than happy with the performance. I was able to use full throttle, no problem. So very fun, very exciting to fly. I think great performance for the money. Man, who is this thing for? I would say it's not really, I would say it's maybe for an adventurous beginner that wants to try to building something at the very low cost of entry. You know, the soldering is not too difficult, so I don't think it would be too bad of a choice, but probably better for someone that's intermediate, just wants something that's cheap and with good performance, high performance. The camera was nice. The only thing I didn't like about the camera, the Caddx Beetle V2, was that the sun would appear as a black dot. You know, that thing that you see on cheap cameras sometimes, the sun is a black dot. It does that thing. But apart from that, the picture was good. The lens was a nice wide angle, which I like when I fly. And the VTX seemed to perform pretty well. It's set on 25 milliwatts, but it was very clear. So that was good as well. And one last thing before I show you the flight. I was flying in a brand new spot today. I've never flown here before. It's adjacent to where I usually fly, so I was kind of feeling my way around there. But neat little spot, cute little trees, and this thing was a heck of a lot of fun up there. So it was just really my second flight on the little 2S 300. Really good. I liked it a lot. So I think I can recommend this kit, just with the caveats that you can see with the design. That's certainly not the kind of thing you're going to fly around in abandonment, let's say, but definitely a fun, high-performance machine for $70. Not bad at all. So anyway, please enjoy the flight here of the Tyro 69 on 2S. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.